I was born where the street vendors wake the sun with smoke and songs, where the first sound of morning is a kettle rattling on a crooked stove, and the last is a mother whispering prices inside her sleep. They call it Soweto, but when I was small, it felt like a single room with many doors. School on one, church on another, taxis waiting like stubborn goats, and hope standing outside with its hands in its pockets. My mother cleaned other people's glitter for 20 years at a Santon hotel with floors so shiny she could see the life she didn't get to live. And at night, she came home with knees that hummed like bad wires. We shared one room that tried to be a kitchen, a bedroom, and a dream. The ceiling fan had moods. The walls had long memories of rain, and the window looked straight into the stubborn smoke of braziers, where women flipped fat cakes, and men laughed even when the month had outrun their money. If you ask me how I learned hunger, I will tell you it had a smell, burnt oil, printed flyers, hot dust, and a colour the same brown as a landlord's face when he knocks and pretends it is just greeting. My best friend TB grew up 3 doors down. Her laugh pushed open rooms that locks could not hold. She braided my hair on Sundays and pressed my cheeks to make me smile when school fees turned my mother's voice thin. "Lulu," she would say, "don't let Instagram lie to your eyes." I pretended to agree. Then I would lie awake with the cracked screen against my nose, scrolling through girls who walked like money was wind, and they were made to cut it. Girls with bone-straight hair that behaved, with lips that knew their worth, with captions carved from arrogance. Another vacation, why not? I knew some of it was fake. I knew angles could turn a shack into a villa. Still, the wanting grew teeth. I wanted a room that did not have to be everything. I wanted a morning that did not taste of ash. I wanted to be seen from the right distance, where even floors looked like a brand. The day everything shifted, Santon reached for me with a manicured hand. A post slid into my feed like a dare, looking for a personal assistant. Must be beautiful, stylish, confident, DM. The account was Zara X, Queen of the Glass Towers, 600,000 followers, and a smile that looked imported. Her G-Wagon was a regular in my dreams. I wrote with my whole body. "Hi, I'm Lulu. I'm confident, stylish, hardworking. I would love to work with you. Send." I sat still as if stillness could coax a miracle. Her reply arrived like rain that knows exactly where the cracks are. "Santon Mall, 3 p.m. Wear something nice." I borrowed a black dress from TB and pressed my cheapest wig under a scarf until it pretended to lie flat. The taxi to Santon felt like a boat crossing a border. Glass rose around me like the city had grown new teeth. The restaurant smelled like somebody's future. Women slid past in designer clothes that made the air around them obey. Zara sat in the corner with sunglasses and a mouth that could cut. "You're late," she said. I wasn't. But poverty teaches you to apologize before you breathe. "Sorry." She tipped her chin. "You're pretty. That's important. Can you keep up?" I said yes, because I had been practicing that yes since I learned my own name. "We'll see," she said, and just like that, I had a key to a door I had pressed my face against for years. Her penthouse was a sermon about money, floor-to-ceiling windows, velvet that looked expensive to touch, gold that had forgotten modesty. The city lay at our feet like a tamed animal. "Let's work," she said, and work looked like ring lights and brand emails, like scheduling shoots and answering people who thought they owned her because they had opinions. She posed for food she never ate, sipped champagne she didn't open, laughed into a camera that didn't know how to be bored. 2 days later, we went to the airport for a private flight to Paris that existed only for her grid. She sat in a jet for 10 minutes while I took pictures from 4 angles. Then we stepped off, called a taxi, went home. "I don't need to fly," she said. "I need them to believe I did." The world shifted under my feet. Wealth, I learned, is not an object. It is a lens. I began to tilt the lens. After 2 weeks, I could tell the difference between owned and borrowed in the way a bag sat on a wrist. I learned the locker where designer pieces could be rented. The man who lent out cars with full tanks and conditions. The unspoken contract between beauty and sponsorship. At a rooftop party where the city lights behaved like confetti, Zara pointed with her mouth at a man whose watch could buy my street. Chief Dlamini, she whispered. He likes pretty, smile. He came like a verdict. Zara, my favorite, he purred. His eyes found me like I was new money. Fresh, he said, and the word felt like a hand on my thigh. Do you like nice things? I said yes, because my whole body had been trained for that answer. The next morning, 30,000 rand sat in my account, and I sat on the floor of my mother's room and tried to breathe like someone who had space inside her chest. I posted a photo from the party with a caption that tasted like triumph. When you work hard, the rewards come. The likes came like rain in November. The comments wrapped me in perfume. Nobody asked how the weather in my account had changed. Nobody needed to know. Money moves your back straight. I walked into shops where the attendants used to aim me toward the sale rack, and they called me ma'am and offered water I didn't need. Hair that wasn't mine claimed my scalp and obeyed my comb. Heels put a new permission in my ankles. The city learned my silhouette. But hunger is not an ache. Hunger is a habit. When you feed it, it claps and demands a bigger bowl. One night on the balcony, Zara lit a cigarette like a punctuation mark. You're not taking full advantage, she said. One sponsor gets bored. You need a roster. Also, invest in your body. I laughed to be polite and then realized she was serious. Snatched waist, lifted bum, hips that make a billionaire forget his wife, she said, like she was reciting instructions to boil an egg. I had seen the horror stories and scrolled past the crying cousins. But the mirror has a way of becoming cruel in good lighting. Where? I asked. Not hospitals, babe, she said. Clinics that don't ask questions. The building smelled of bleach and shame. White rooms like someone's idea of clean. Doctors who did not keep their names where you could see them. Girls with perfect faces and nervous hands. A famous one named Ava sat beside me and winked. This is my third, she said. Maintenance. I could hear my mother's voice telling me a body is a country you must respect, and I folded that voice and put it in my pocket so my face could look brave. Zara went in first, then Ava. A scream tore the corridor in half. A door slapped open. Ava's skin had turned the color of paper and stopped being hers. Men dragged her like a secret out the back. Wheels of a metal stretcher stuttering over a crack. Zara grabbed my wrist. We are leaving, she said, and for once I did not argue. Outside the sun was rude with its brightness. I bent over a hedge and emptied the little I had eaten. I vowed to love my flaws. My vow lasted 3 weeks. There is a kind of hunger no store can quiet. Zara took me to a woman who did not look like a healer. Her skin had the rich calm of people who sleep well. Her house had the scent of secrets that had paid rent. Remove your clothes, she said, handing us black cloths. I wrapped myself in fabric that felt like a decision. She brought a bowl of dark liquid that caught the light like oil on a road. Bathe in this, she said, in a voice that did not bother with doubt. From tonight, no man will say no. When the liquid touched my skin, it stung like truth and warmed like flattery. I felt a door open somewhere behind my navel and a wind move through. I am not proud of that night. Pride belongs to a version of me that had not yet learned how a soul can be traded in small spoons. The world reacted as if I had changed the app's code. Chief Dlamini, who had been busy for a week, wired me 200,000 as if his fingers were relieved. A man I barely remembered sent me a car with a ribbon thick as a lie. My inbox swelled with unasked-for confessions. I wore new confidence like fragrance. My follower count grew the way weeds do after a storm. PR companies reached out to be seen on my body. I posted mornings wrapped in white sheets and nights wrapped in soft light and put motivational captions under everything. TB wrote that she was proud of me. I stared at the message like it was a mirror and did not recognize my face in it. I told her, "Thank you," because my mouth remembered how. I did not see the first shadow arrive because the room was too bright. An anonymous account wrote, "You cannot lie forever." I left because the internet is full of prophets whose altars are made of envy. Then the blogs woke. Johannesburg's newest IT girl, funded by a married billionaire, they wrote, putting my photos next to a car key and a credit card, like I was a collage of sins. I called Zara. "Check Twitter," she said, as if she were asking me to check the weather. My name was swimming in a pond where people feed on blood and call it opinion. Brand managers who had called me darling wrote cold emails about pausing our partnership until further notice. Chief Dlamini blocked me where it hurt, in my contacts, in my account, in his heart that had never been mine. The penthouse keycard failed. The lift refused to know me. I ran to the person who had opened the door in the first place. "Why?" I asked. Zara sipped wine like it was my pain. "You were getting too big," she said. "You forgot I made you." The words broke something that had been holding my ribs still. "You were my friend." She laughed so softly it sounded like pity. This industry doesn't do friendship. Win or be used. The days after that taught me how loud silence can be. The phone rang only when somebody wanted a quote for a headline that used my name like a whip. My mother, who had kept her mouth quiet while I grew taller than her advice, held my face with both hands and saw all the prices I had paid. TB cooked me porridge and placed it on my lap, like we were children and I had scraped my knee. I stared into that bowl and saw old faithful hunger. I told myself I would rebuild. Then I told myself something angrier. If it is a war, I said to the night, let it find me standing in the middle. The Sangoma's house in Soweto was the color of old blood and tobacco smoke. Symbols ran across the walls, like writing you can only read if you already understand it. Candles bent their flames towards a mat where a woman sat like a tree that had decided to be human. "You have come broken," she said without raising her voice. "I want revenge," I said, and my mouth tasted metal. "Revenge eats," she said. "Are you prepared to be food?" "Yes," I lied. She gave me a red cloth, a black candle, a bottle with liquid as dark as a moonless dam. 3 drops on your tongue each night," she said. "Your words will make dust out of names." At home, I lit the candle and tied the cloth and touched fire to my tongue. Something flickered in the corner of the room and called itself power. I slept and dreamt my hands could pull stars down and squeeze them into rings. Zara posted from a yacht the next day. Her happiness arranged like plates before guests arrive. I spoke her name aloud and blew the word into the flame. In the morning, the blogs dripped with her secrets. Statements that remembered the wrong nights. Transfers that could only be explained by the sort of generosity that wears a suit and a wedding ring. Her phone went quiet on the timeline. Brands wrote her the same emails they had written me, simply changing the name. I sat in a private club with a borrowed glass and watched dominoes fall across a city that had taught me how balance works. Chief Dlamini's wife forgot discretion. A friend of a friend forgot loyalty. Screenshots bred like cockroaches. I told myself justice was just a more beautiful name for pain that feels fair. I did not notice my own shadow had begun to lag behind me, as if it were tired. The first night I woke to whispers. I thought the house was swallowing itself. A shape moved where my wardrobe should be. I turned on my phone's torch and lit a sliver of air. Nothing showed, and fear laughed inside my bones. The message came in the afternoon. Zara's account, a single sentence. "Did you think it was over?" I clicked and fell through emptiness. The account was gone. I told myself it was a prank. Another night, the candle's flame bent blue and would not stand up straight. The knocks at the door followed, fat as fists. A text burrowed into my pocket. Come outside. I told my feet no, and my feet obeyed. When I finally opened the door, relief rushed me like water. Then a hand gripped my wrist with a tenderness that hated me. Zara's face looked like somebody had forgotten it on a windowsill in the sun. Her eyes were oiled holes. I ran. What followed belongs to the part of stories people whisper and call rumor. Some say I was found days later in a market, wearing red heels and a broken handbag, preaching to onions about truth. Some say I boarded a bus to nowhere and made it back to my mother's room and slept for a week while she prayed my name into the walls. The internet preferred the market version because madness makes better content. They wrote, Soweto influencer falls from grace. They wrote, soft life turns hard. They wrote like we are not real, like our mothers do not read. Here is what I know, told from the inside of my mouth, where lies have become allergic to my tongue. I ran back to the Sangoma and placed the bottle on the mat, like a guilty child puts down a broken plate. It won't stop, I said. You called it, she replied. Everything you push leaves a fingerprint on your own life. I asked if it could be undone. She looked at me the way rain looks at a roof with holes. Balance does not bargain, she said, but it listens. She told me to take off everything that could be put on. Wigs, nails, lashes, pride. She shaved my head until my skull felt like a newborn truth. She washed me in water that smelled of camphor and earth, and the cold made me cry the way joy makes people cry when it surprises them. Return what you took, she said. Call the names you broke and bless them. Give your money away until your pockets feel like forgiveness. Go home. Home has a different smell when you've been lying to yourself. My mother held my face and called me her small son, as if light could be taught to behave. TB unrolled a mat and made a bed for my shame. I went to the township market with a scarf tied like the first day of school. When someone whispered, I decided to bless them with silence. I sold my red heels for less than the price of their story and gave the money to a woman who needed school shoes for a boy whose ears stuck out like good luck. I sent messages to people I had wronged, men, brands, girls, whose shine I had tried to dim with my shadow, and told them I wished them water. I took down photos that offered a version of me I could no longer carry. I pried my mother's hands from the mop and told her to sit while I learned how to clean a floor until it was honest. I still love beautiful things. I love the line a tailor draws with chalk and turns into a dress that makes a body stand proud. I love a room with windows that remember the sky, but I love them differently now. The way you love fire when you have learned to cook without burning your house. Sometimes the city is kind. Sometimes it is a mouth with more teeth than compassion. Sometimes a girl wants to be seen so badly, she forgets to be herself. If you ask me what I am now, I will not call myself an influencer. I influence the water to boil. I influence my mother to keep her salary for herself. I influence my own shadow to stay close, even when the light is sweet. If this sounds like a confession, forgive me. I am learning to speak like a person who owes the truth, nothing but the truth. I am still paying for candles I lit, without asking who else had to sit in the dark. I am still teaching my eyes to want what they can keep. When I walk past Santon's glass, I see a ghost girl with a heavy wig and a caption ready. I wave at her gently. I tell her I know why she did what she did. I tell her I am building a life where she can sit and breathe without pretending to have wings. On some nights, the old hunger comes back wearing a new dress. I open the window and let the township in. Smoke, laughter, a radio playing a song from a decade that still owes me a dance. I press my palm to the wall and feel its rough honesty. TB braids my hair, the short new growth that smells of shea butter and stubbornness. My mother's knees have stopped complaining because she finally learned how to rest. We eat pap and stew and do not take pictures. We talk about the price of tomatoes and the weather. We talk about the girls on Instagram and remember to bless them, because the edges of that world are sharp and the center is a hole. My name is Lulu. I used to want the world to clap every time I opened my eyes. Now I want to keep my eyes open when no one is looking. If you find a video of me that makes you feel taller, know that it was taken while I was still learning how to stand. If you see me walking through the market in a simple dress and sensible shoes, do not mistake peace for failure. I have learned to hear the sound of my own breath, the small drum that keeps time even when the music is over. I am here, still dark-skinned, still a woman in a country that remembers how to sing even when it is tired. I am here with a heart that knows the difference between a lie that pays and a truth that stays. I am here with hands that can work and a mouth that can pray and a spine that no longer needs to be propped up by other people's pictures. The city is still bright, the township is still loud. I am still learning, and that at last is enough. I woke before the kettle whistled and sat on the stope, barefoot on the cool cement, counting the breaths I used to borrow from other people's rooms. Soweto was yawning awake, buckets knocking, braziers coughing into flame, a radio somewhere insisting on an old Brenda Fassie hook. I swept the front like my mother used to, slow strokes that told the earth I was back on speaking terms. When the sun finally put gold on the window bars, I tied a simple doke and walked to the community hall with a folder under my arm and a new name for my hunger. They called me to speak to a circle of girls who wore their dreams like lip gloss, shiny, unsteady, easily smudged. I told them the truth with a softness I wish someone had used on me, that a camera can bless and a camera can bite, that you must never let a caption spend your soul, that a sponsor who hides you will also hide your tears. A small one with knotted braids asked, "What if you already made mistakes?" I took her hand and said, "Then we will build a staircase from those broken pieces and climb." We wrote budgets on scrap paper, translated brand into bread, and practiced saying no without explaining. When they laughed, I felt my spine remember what upright meant. On the way home, a storm was gathering its skirts over the Orlando towers. The wind had that metallic smell that announces rain and memory. I passed the salon where we used to buy wigs that insisted we were worthy. The window showed me myself, with a shaved head and an even face. I waved at the ghost of the old me and didn't flinch. That night, I unpacked a shoebox of the last expensive lies. Bracelets that had learned my pulse. A watch that ticked too loud. A card holder with initials that weren't mine. I laid them in a row like a choir and thanked them for the lessons. How to enter a room. How to exit with dignity. In the morning, I gave them to a woman whose pawn shop has more mercy than interest. With the cash, I bought maize meal, cooking oil, soap, and a sack of oranges that made the taxi smile. We dropped parcels at the doors that used to feed us stories about resilience. My mother shook her head, laughing that small laugh that means a prayer has come home, tired but safe. Sometimes the city still tests me. A DM slithers in with a neon promise. A number I once ran toward lights up my screen. I breathe. I boil water. I iron a plain dress and go teach the afternoon class, where we edit CVs and record voice notes that sound like confidence. When the girls ask about Santon, I tell them the glass shines the same way on a Monday morning and a Sunday evening. Beauty is not a verdict, only a view. One evening, as dusk braided itself through the washing lines, I felt the old cold at my back, the one that used to arrive before the knocks. I turned slowly and found only my shadow, long and thin, stitched to my heels like loyalty. "It's just us now," I told it. Somewhere, thunder rolled like a heavy truth, being moved to the right shelf. I lit one white candle, not for revenge, not for show, only for light, and set it by the window so the room could glow from nothing borrowed. Tibi came by with a plastic bag of tomatoes and gossip. We cooked. We ate on enamel plates with chipped rims that know our mouths by name. My mother dozed in her chair, feet in a basin of warm water, the TV murmuring about a world that finally didn't need to clap for us to keep breathing. Later, when the night was fully dressed, I slipped outside and poured a little sweet tea onto the ground. For balance, I whispered. For the girls who are still scrolling. For the boys learning the cost of easy power. For the version of me that ran and the version that stayed. The candle trembled once and steadied. A breeze carried in laughter from 2 houses away, and for a moment the whole street sounded like a promise I could afford. I went back inside, closed the door without locking it against myself, and slept the kind of sleep that does not need filters to look like peace.